"Morning, Gran!" she cried, and tugging at the old woman's beard and kicking her playfully on her enormous backside. The old crone swung a fist, but the agile little girl ducked easily and pulled the old hag's nose. The two girls were restless all morning, and the robber girl taunted her grandmother endlessly and engaged her in mock fights and horseplay to tire her out. By lunchtime, the old woman was quite exhausted, and after a huge slice of pie, and she took a great swig from her leather bottle she always carried at her side. After what seemed like hours and 100 swigs, but was really only a few minutes, the old crone settled by the fire and closed her eyes. Moments later, she was snoring loudly enough to wake the dead. "Quick," said the robber girl, "you must go now. She never sleeps for too long." They ran over to where the reindeer was tethered. The robber girl stroked his mane and ran her hands over his antlers. "I shall miss teasing you," she said a little sadly. "You pull such funny faces when I show you my knife." Then she added very seriously, "And you must remember your promise. Take Gerda straight to Lapland. No delays for playing and rolling in the snow." "I will," said the reindeer with a bow of his antlers. "And you," said the robber girl to Gerda, "you must always remember your promise to visit me again when you find your friend." "I will, I promise," Gerda reassured her. As Gerda was about to clamber onto the reindeer's back, the robber girl thrust something into her arms. It was her blanket. "You'll need it more than me," said the robber girl gruffly, "but I'm keeping your gloves and scarf. They're so pretty." Gerda smiled at the robber girl, who looked fierce and scowled. "But you mustn't get frostbite, and this blanket will keep you warm." The robber girl helped Gerda wrap the blankets round her. It smelled of old fish and smoke, but it was the warmest blanket Gerda had ever worn. Gerda climbed onto the reindeer's back, and the robber girl tied a sack to the reindeer's neck. "2 loaves and a ham," she said. "I stole them this morning. No point in going all the way to Lapland and then starving to death." Gerda felt a tear roll down her cheek and sniffed loudly. "Get on with you," cried the robber girl, slapping the reindeer's backside. "You know how I hate all this whimpering." The reindeer leapt for joy at his new-found freedom, and Gerda clung onto his antlers as he surged forwards. She managed to wave one pale hand at the robber girl, who stood by as they sped off into the forest. The reindeer ran so fast it almost seemed to Gerda that they were flying over the land. They passed through the forest into marshy moorland. Soon that too was left behind them as they began to cross wild, windswept plains. Huge birds of prey circled overhead, and Gerda heard the howling of wolves in the distance, but the reindeer sprinted on, not slowing as day turned to night. Before long it was full night, and both the loaves and the ham were eaten. Gerda heard a noise and looked up. She gasped as a fiery streak of light shot across the sky in front of them. Another followed, and another, and Gerda could hear the crack and fizz as the lights took off. It was like nature's own firework display, and to Gerda it seemed the most magical thing. The reindeer paused for a moment to watch with her. "The northern lights," proudly said. "Aren't they magnificent?" "Oh, yes," agreed Gerda, "and somehow I feel like they're guiding me." "Well, maybe they are," said the reindeer, "because if we can see the lights, it means that we are close to Lapland." As if spurred on by the thought of his homeland, the reindeer leapt into the air, and with a great kick of his strong back legs, he sped off once more across the wintry plains. Stay tuned for Chapter 6.